And welcome to the smAsho stream, looking at a little over 7 hours of solar activity here in the 193 angstroms. Massive hourglass-shaped coronal hole straddling the solar equator, probably magnetically connecting right now. We're going to talk degenerates, urinating on potatoes, cosmology, radio galaxies, inflation, the Fed, economic illiteracy, and more. Let's look at another view here. My personal favorite is 171 angstroms. There's that. And thanks for everybody who's tuned in, both live and later. We do see a little activity popping off around here, also visible in the 193 angstroms view, as well as up here on the northwestern limb. Otherwise, pretty low activity, although the sun is ramping up its behavior. We have a giant plage here in the center of the disk. There's a big plasma filament right here, and two big coronal holes. So in the wind stream right now from the now setting coronal hole, the one out here, and awaiting a magnetic connection from this pair of gigantic hourglass, really two triangle-shaped coronal holes there, right on either side of the equator. Probably going to make for a greater coronal hole wind stream than that last one, I would expect, especially as being behind this magnetically active region. Here's a synoptic map from today. If you want to know where that is, it's located at the space weather, whatever. There's a link in the description to it. So feel free to click the box below the video or next to the video or wherever it happens to be today and check the links. I'm going to have to refresh this one. We do see the phi angle shifting all over the place very recently while I did show prep. So we expect a magnetic connection to that coronal hole anytime. Expect to see a phi angle at or near 180 degrees sometime today. Solar wind density has ramped down as anticipated, while the solar wind speed has ramped up. So the forecast from yesterday, precisely right. Standard coronal hole wind stream there. The density went up, and then it went back down as the speed went up. So that's a normal thing. So solar wind density, 1.44 protons per cubic centimeter. And solar wind speed, 555 kilometers a second. Here's the ACE data. There's the most recent update. Here's where things are located in the solar system. And welcome, Harry. Thanks for leaving a comment. Milky Way Galaxy team for the win. There's where things will be in 7 days. Check out the view from Stereo A. This is the coronagraph out at Stereo A, and noteworthy here is this southward facing plasma plume. This is the Earth facing portion for your new viewers out there. You can see that trailing coronal hole right there. And then this plasma plume here still being held in place, although pulsating a little bit. It's looking like it's remaining stable so far. Again, large filament in between those coronal holes. No sunspots, folks. No sunspots. 10.7 centimeter radial flux is at 67. So still solar minimum conditions as far as 10.7 centimeter radial flux and sunspots. But otherwise, the sun is ramping up its behavior. There's a density spike there. See a density spike on that magnetosphere movie. Right near the beginning, and then some more near the end. A density reduction there at the end. Let's look at the pressure as well. This is 4 hours of data for you abnormal viewers. There's that shock wave. And that's caused by the increase in the solar wind speed. As F does equal ma when you're on a macroscopic scale. To look at the ground geospace magnetic perturbations, and we expect to see one around the same time on the movie. It's going to show you the same 4 hours of data if it plays. And it does not appear to be loading. Let's refresh. There it goes. And let's try again. All right. So there are the geospace magnetic perturbations a little closer to home. There's that big shock wave right at the beginning. Let's rock that back. And you see obvious evidence of current passing through your planet. Let's pause that. There's that shock wave right there. That's a large magnetic perturbation. Let's look at it from the polar view. You'll probably see a spiral at the South Pole there. As evidence of the Birkeland current. There it is. It looks just like a spiral. No real surprise. To those who understand cosmology, the new cosmology. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, folks, as astrophysics is getting rewritten, like it or not. Check it out. Obvious Birkeland currents coming into and out of, indeed, both ends of the planet. There you can see those obvious spirals. Keep in mind, folks, this is all the space weather modeling framework based on University of Michigan geospace model, the same model that we viewed the far out view from in the last frame. So there's that. And we see another small pulse there. I'm usually interested in what's going on above my head, so let's refresh. It's 3:43. Do you know where Saturn is? Check out the smAsho mission. It's in the links below the video. I'm not going to read it. Follow us on Patreon, as we've been bleeding cash on all of our endorsements and so on. Channel is bleeding cash. There's only one tier, folks, and it's $1. Now, the software on Patreon is terrible. Let me be the first to say that. However, Patreon is also this channel's main source of income, as Google pays us nothing and is a huge scam. And I mean YouTube. So anyway, join us on Patreon. You'll get a whole bunch of exclusive stuff for $1 a month. Also, if you'd like to be in the market for some CBDs, check out the Spaced Out campaign, also linked below the video. And it's Hemp Lucid. You are interrupting with an ad. As I interrupt your space weather with an ad. Check out the Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign, again, linked below the video. Specifically formulated for our spaced out viewers. What's going on in space? Well, head to spaceweather.com. The site where I originally started studying the sun in depth back in 2003. Get ready for the Perseids, they're coming. Perseids are the biggest one of the year, I believe, although I'm not really a meteor expert. Check out the green air glow. Crazy auroras there over Denmark. Fantastic photo. KP index is a 2. That refreshed? I think that's refreshed. Show prep took a long time today, folks. There are a lot of links below the video, and we're going to get to a lot of stories in a minute. First, we got to blast through a whole bunch of data, such as the X-ray flux, which is pretty flatlined. Couple little perturbations there. Rose electron flux looking pretty normal for such a high coronal hole wind speed. And coronal hole wind, solar wind speed at about 550 kilometers per second. There's the ionosphere. It's looking pretty discharged on both sides, especially the daytime side. Rose magnetometer continuing spikiness as forecasted yesterday on this channel. Here's the Gong 2 stuff, the data. This is based on a different modeling framework, folks. This is a whole bunch of ground magnetometers, National Sunspot Observatory, as well as the magnetometers on stereo A and stereo B. See a lot of activity on the sun, actually. Whenever you see these areas of plasma here, these bunched up lines that look like they're hovering above the sun, that's because those fields are blocking the fields of the actual corona. And this looks like, let's get to the last frame there. There's the last frame. So this magnetometer situation will continue here for the next 24 hours, I expect. Keep in mind the data projected here is 1 hour and 42 minutes old, and things magnetic can change with absolutely no warning. Follow me on Instagram if you like. There's going to be some different content there, such as when I got into heat stroke mode 2 days ago. My riding partner shows up late, and then we get sidetracked, stopping and talking to the people. And then we climb a giant mountain with a 4.5 mile death climb, including grades of 18% or more. And then we don't get to take the easy way up. We got to go up the hard way in the sun because of a road closure. So yeah, it was a pretty rough day. Riding the time trial bike with a disc wheel, which goes uphill like a lead anchor. Here's me in heat stroke mode. Blotchy skin, goosebumps, confusion. A little confusion. Not a whole lot more confusion than I usually have. Check us out on Facebook. We actually just shared some stuff on Facebook for once. So check out facebook.com/smAsho, where we just shared a Peter Schiff story. If you don't watch Peter Schiff's videos, you should. Check it out. Europe's going to get some inflation too as they're buying bonds. Well done. Well done. Anyway, we announced the video here. I guess I'll press like. Hey, I like my own video. How do you like that? Facebook.com/smAsho, where you will get censored, shadow banned, and depersoned, and so on if you don't do what Mark says. Also, check us out on Gab. Trying to interact more there. Shout out David Devine. Waiting for your new video to come out, buddy. Check us out on minds.com/smAsho, also the social media that won't censor you. Help us get to 500,000 views. Chugging along okay here. We've got a lot more views than most channels that only has 700 subscribers, by the way, and that's because we're provocative and we produce original content. So please press like and subscribe under this video. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, press the notification bell so you know when we're going to do these live streams. Check out this video about molybdenum by Periodic Videos, a great YouTube channel. Let's just play a clip, as when you see this guy's hairdo, you're going to want to watch. I don't know what's going on with my volume. I got no volume.
You might expect just from melting, and because the micrograph showed that it was all frothy.
Anyway, this video about molybdenum, a super interesting industrial chemical. It's used in things like structural steel. I've included links to this also. Super high melting and boiling point. Melting point is at 4,752 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's why it's used for structural steel. Let's refresh this, make sure it's fresh, do an earthquake and volcano rundown as fast as possible. A 5.0 in Russia. Happening just about 23 hours ago. Here's a 4.4 in Ecuador, 5.0 in Kamchatka. That one looking like it's just off the coast. Here's a 4.9 at Tonga. And a very deep one, 552 kilometers deep, at a 4.5 magnitude at Fiji. More quakes in California as thousands of aftershocks hit the Petrolia area. Not the Petrolia area, the China Lake Test Site area, Naval Weapons Test Center. 4.4 at Kamchatka. Oh, Vanuatu got a big quake, and Australia got another weirdo quake. Check it out. First, let's look at a 4.8 in Albania. There we go. Largest quake of the past day, I think. That 6.6 at Vanuatu could have caused some damage. Let's take a closer look. Oh, it was at depth. Heads up for a deeper quake there. Does anybody live there? I have no idea. Please leave a comment. Leave a comment if you know. All right, I don't see too much population there. Looks like a volcanic island there, like an ancient volcano or something. Anyway, there's a location of that quake, 6.6 magnitude at depth. Coronal hole connection about to happen. Could make for some bad times around Vanuatu. As if that quake would have happened at the surface, that would be nearly an 8 magnitude quake, folks. Again, 179 kilometers depth. Have an earthquake plan if you live around there, as there could be a tsunami when that surface quake hits. Here's a 4.7 at the Northern Mariana Islands. That's south of Japan there. 4.4 at the Philippines, 5.3 at Indonesia. A very deep quake at Japan, just south of the main island there, 443 kilometers depth. So those are the two hot spots for a larger quake, Vanuatu and south of Japan. There's another 5.0 at Vanuatu, that one at 188 kilometers. Perhaps a relaxation of force there, but I would still be prepared for an 8 magnitude quake at Vanuatu and at Japan, really. Not to mention the US. Here's a 5.4 in north central Australia, a weird spot for a quake, wouldn't you agree? Check it out. Well into the mainland there. Leave a comment if you felt that quake. On the world's largest island. Very strange. All right. And also a 4.3 at Fiji, also at an extreme depth of 566 kilometers. That would be like a magnitude 6 if it was at the surface. Volcano rundown. Kluchevskoye is back on the list, producing an 18,000-foot ash plume. Now, also, don't be an also and realize that there's explosive activity happening there, producing a 7,000-foot ash plume. Sanjiang-Api, 8,000-foot plume there as it continues to explode. Krakatau. What's up with that? Have they raised the alert level at Krakatau? This is one of the big ones on the planet in the past year or two. Krakatau, it's made some new real estate and erased some other real estate. Super violent volcano there, Krakatau. That's one not to screw with. Tacona, explosive activity there too, 6,000-foot ash plume. Explosive activity at Popocatépetl. And Reventador remains on the list with volcanic ash extending 35 nautical miles out of the caldera. Thanks for all the abbreviations. All right. That courtesy volcanodiscovery.com. Here are the jets. Let's look at the south one first, as it actually looks like a jet. Southern jet stream is doubled up south of Africa. Extremely meridional here, southeast of Australia. Extremely meridional flow there. Injecting warm air into Antarctica and injecting cold air toward the South Pacific, where there's nobody where there's nobody located. Look at the big bend right there. Huge bend in the jet stream right there. And let's look at the northern jet. Here's a view from the pole. And by the way, it's not going to look like a jet, although it's looking a little more organized than it was yesterday and the past week. Still lots of convective forces playing havoc, injecting cold air where it, quote, doesn't belong, end quote, and injecting hot air where it, quote, doesn't belong, end quote. Anyway, let's move on here. There's still a lot of stuff to cover. Heavy storms over the border around Michigan and Kansas. Are you aware the Tour de France got shredded by a landslide and a hailstorm, which shut the race down? cause the leader jersey to change hands and decide the race earlier than it should have been decided. The first Colombian ever, shout out Egan Bernal, the first Colombian to ever win the Tour de France overall title. Check out the hailstorm. Links to this Yahoo video. Let's play a short clip of the bulldozer. And do not copyright strike me as I am muting this and talking over it. This is what we call commentary, which means it's not copyright bannable yet. And we did have a little issue 2 days ago with some copyright issues because some scammer channel who didn't even upload a video placed a copyright claim against a video that we uploaded. So figure that one out. Did Google sanction them? Who knows? But I doubt it, although they're quick to sanction me. Here's a convergence zone here around Missouri. Fantastic Hall current streamers coming out of the edge of that storm where the mixture zone is happening, especially. Perfect perpendicular to mode of motion lines there, as we see regularly in these sorts of convergences. Great example of it if you're not getting a hailstorm or a tornado or something like that. This storm looks like it's moving about nowhere. So if you're in those areas, expect it to stagnate. Please understand the distinction between your ass and a hole in the ground. Talk about some truths, like how Google is a scam and not a verb, and how you should be ungoogleable. Get Google out of your life, folks. It's one of the worst companies in the history of mankind. Let's talk about economic illiteracy. Donald Trump is economically illiterate on a macro scale, as he refers to himself as a cheap money guy. So Donald Trump, helping to politicize the Federal Reserve here, was mad at Jerome Powell for only reducing the prime lending rate by a quarter basis point. Trump wanted a half basis point rate reduction, but he only got a quarter point rate reduction. And this is yet another example of why the Federal Reserve is not the government. I've had many arguments with people who don't understand the Federal Reserve, who think the Federal Reserve is the government. The Federal Reserve is a private organization. And if anybody answers to anybody, the government answers to the Fed, not vice versa. Keep in mind, in order to continue massive spending, President Trump needs to have low interest rates, because if the interest rates get any higher, the government's going to have to reduce its spending. And that's something Trump doesn't tend to do. That's the main issue I have with him, as all of my political arguments are economically based. So you may think I'm a Nazi or a right-winger or some kind of ultra-conservative, but I'm just a leans right kind of a guy, really. I used to think I was a leftist and wonder why I didn't fit in with all the nonsense I was having spewed at me during college, which is why I got out. Anyway, link to this article also. Let's read a Trump quote. What the market wanted to hear from Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve was that this was the beginning of a lengthy and aggressive rate-cutting cycle, okay? Which would keep pace with China, okay? The European Union and other countries around the world, okay? In other words, Trump wants you to have as much inflation as China and Europe. That's the translation of that stupid, economically illiterate comment. If you want to learn about inflation, check out the CPI, which is not a real measure of inflation. It's a way to estimate inflation. And keep in mind, the government always cooks the books on this, changing the amount of various different items in the basket of goods. So the CPI is used to calculate inflation using price, and that's the ultimate lagging indicator. In other words, by the time the CPI informs you of the inflation rate, you're like 18 months behind. But anyway, if you'd like to hear what the government thinks the inflation rate is, check out BLS, putting the BS in bls.gov/CPI. Now, let's talk about the Fed. which artificially controls interest rates, which are the largest block of business in the world, which is why the Fed shouldn't exist, or at least should not be able to artificially control the interest rates. Capitalism has been gone since 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act was signed into law by Woodrow Wilson on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. When everybody came back the next year, they were slaves to a banking cartel. To hear about how real mind control works, there's an article about it linked in the description. And here's how it works, folks. That's how mind control works. And by the way, the Android operating system, which is owned by Google, is one of the worst pieces of software ever created. Check out the unmanned bicycle. If you need a drone bike, well, somebody's built one using the Tianjik chip. Check it out. It's a self-driving bike. You're worried about self-driving cars. Well, screw that, man. How about a self-driving bike? This thing goes around obstacles by itself. Good times. Good times. I don't know why you'd want one, but anyway, links to that in the description also. Please import a self-riding bike, as I find myself very lazy sometimes. Radio halo detected in the galaxy cluster PSZ2 G099.86 plus 58.45. Another catchy name. Thanks, astronomers, for making that so easy to look up. Anyway, they probed the galaxy using LOFAR. Links to this article also. Radio halos are super important. Links also to lofar.org, which is a low-frequency radio telescope, as well as astron.nl. Here's an example of what we're looking at here. The radio halos around things very, very far away. Sure, cookie me, I don't care. I use the Brave browser. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff we're looking at. The radio halos. I used to think radio astronomy was boring because I didn't understand it in the 90s, but now I get it. So thanks for tuning into the Smash stream, folks. It's about time to get out of here, but we're going to do 2 bonus articles first. Why are degenerates recording themselves spitting in food and other disgusting things? Why are people such idiots? I guess that's kind of an age-old question, isn't it? Well, the reason we're talking about this, and there are links in the description to these articles as well, is because this particular one happened not too far from home in Pennsylvania here, West Mifflin County, West Mifflin Township, West Mifflin something. Well done, Grace Brown, accused of peeing on potatoes in a Walmart. All right, pardon my dry sense of humor, folks. I have great difficulty laughing at my own jokes. Here's a 304 angstrom view. We see a bunch of filaments. This is about 7.5 hours of solar activity. And it is time to break north. And when I say break north, I mean break west. So since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back, and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.